We are in this sweet spot right now. After the elections, now into the holidays, you wouldn't think that there's a lot going on right now that would affect your vote or any big election next year. But you'd be wrong. This week in Jeff City, we will see the final testimony and closing arguments in a case we've been watching for a while now. The conclusion to the ongoing battle over Missouri's voter ID law. The rules, which went into effect last year, require Missouri voters to show a state or federal government-issued photo ID at the polls to cast a normal ballot. They could still use a provisional ballot, but they have many more hoops to jump through to have that vote count. The Missouri NAACP and League of Women Voters are suing the state, claiming the law makes casting a ballot unconstitutionally difficult for some voters.
We're confident that upon the conclusion of this evidence, the court will see clearly that this law does not address any valid, much less compelling government interest.
The National Conference of State Legislatures says 36 states, including Kansas, require some sort of identification to vote, with 20 of those states requiring a photo ID at the polls. That is one fight in the works. Another could have a big impact on abortion rights in Missouri. Advocates petitioning to put protections on the ballot next year are playing catch up right now after months of delays from Republicans in state office, along with legal challenges. Organizers have until May to collect more than 171,000 signatures from voters across the state. They're worried that is an uphill battle at this point.
The campaign should have had the opportunity to be in the field talking to voters back in the summer months. And there are serious and real concerns about what it means to launch a campaign in the winter when signature gathering at a very practical and base level is much more difficult.
The latest holdup involved the ballot wording written by Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft. The courts ruled it was filled with politically partisan language. Let's discuss all that with our roundtable of journalists. Please welcome back Brian Ellison, host contributor with KCUR, and KMBC9 political reporter Michael Mahoney. Let's start with this abortion rights petition saga, right? Organizers are really scrambling to make up for lost time here.
Yeah, Mallory Schwartz really sort of laid it out there that because they need X amount of signatures, over 170,000 throughout the state of Missouri based on different congressional districts, it is really time consuming to collect signatures. And you can do that easier in the summer or when the weather is nicer, because you can be in the parking lots of grocery stores and other places, people out in parks, not so much during the colder months. And so they are seriously behind on this, and it's a big concern for them.
And it's not just the gathering of the signatures. There's some strategic decisions that the organizers of these petitions need to make. They filed 12 different petitions so that they could pick and choose about which ones they thought had the best chance of gaining voter support. They need to decide, are they going to try to enshrine the right to an abortion up to 24 weeks? Are they going to try to enshrine that right through fetal viability? Which of those will be most successful? They've lost 6 months of time in trying to make those decisions and gauge voter response. So this is actually a very significant challenge. Some might say that Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft was successful in delaying that process and making it more difficult for these measures to pass.
Yeah, we know, of course, the language has been hammered out now, right? No longer using Secretary Ashcroft's descriptions of unregulated, unrestricted abortions, which was a lot of the same rhetoric we saw used in Kansas last year, leading up to that big vote. Will these groups be able to get everything done by May?
I still think that the big threshold here is collecting the signatures. Even though they have been going through the courts, I suspect that there's been some coalition underway around 1, 2, 3 of these proposals that are more preferred than the others, but they need to winnow it down.
And let's not forget, Cody, that there is one other factor. The legislature in Missouri may still come to the conclusion that they want to propose a higher threshold for citizen initiatives, constitutional amendments to pass. They may try to pass something that gets on the August ballot so that this measure would get put on the November ballot and require some higher percentage of votes to become law. We'll see if that actually is successful.
Well, and if that doesn't happen, I fully expect any sort of abortion amendment that goes on the ballot to be in August as opposed to November, because the turnout is lighter, and there'll be more Republicans voting, which is a base that may be more pro-life.
Right. All right. We want to talk about voter ID real quick. This trial's coming to an end. What should we expect here?
Well, I think what we've seen also in that same Cole County courtroom, Judge John Beadham, a trial over the question of whether Missouri's voter ID law is constitutional or whether it simply is a partisan attempt to reduce the number of voters. I think the NAACP and the League of Women Voters, the plaintiffs in that case, have made a strong case that there's a partisan motivation to reduce voting in Jackson County, in St. Louis County, in Columbia, Missouri. All of those places statistically had much higher numbers of provisional ballots cast in the 2022 elections than they had in the 2020 elections under the previous law. Whether the judge will say that's within the legislature's prerogative or is actually a constitutional issue is a problem.
I got to get to this while we have you, because this was just all kinds of vitriol in Kansas over this new license plate design that was the design for like a hot second. You see it here. It looks a lot like the New York plates. KU fans would be the first to tell you the colors are way too Mizzou for their taste. Governor had a lot of pressure on this, Mahoney. He now says it's back to the drawing board.
I am trying to think of another clear-cut reversal of policy this quickly that I've ever seen in my career, and I don't think I can think of one. This came out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I sort of thought it was being buried because of that anyway. And then the vitriol and the pushback on this thing was astonishing. It started over the holiday weekend. Legislators were saying that we're going to challenge this, and then by the first of this past week, boom! I just said, "Well, let's pull this off the table and see what happens."
Yeah, Governor Kelly had a good sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
She said, I've always wanted to bring people together. I've always wanted to create bipartisan agreement. And sure enough, Republicans and Democrats hated the new design. I don't know though, Cody. It's yellow and black. It's the color of sunflowers. It's Kansas's state
It
flag.
looks like fake macaroni and cheese. That's the color. And I saw it in New York as well. They're very, very similar. Go check those out. But yeah, Kansas will get to vote on it. We'll, of course, keep you posted on that. We'll leave it there. Brian Nelson, Michael Mahoney, thank you. KMBC 9 News is watching the plate saga and every other issue every step of the way. Look for coverage on air and online at KMBC.com.